My name is Brad Kirschner. I am Dean of School at Kimberton Waldorf School. Exposure to digital media and screens for young children is a really big and important issue. And it's really important at a number of different levels. First of all, just understanding how, the behavior that we get used to is developing habits. And those habits are developing really deep established mindsets of how we're sort of approaching the world. And the most important thing for learning and really for life, I would say, is attention and quality of attention. And one of the things that happens when we're on digital screens is that the rate of change of what's happening on the screen is usually very rapid. It's actually a form of hypernormal stimuli or hyperstimulation. So we're, in some ways, if we are exposing young children to digital media a lot, we're actually habituating them to hypernormal stimuli so that a fast-paced hyperstimulation through their eyes becomes normalized for them. And then that sort of makes reality pale by comparison, and there becomes an addictive quality to screens, which we can see really, really clearly in pretty much every child. There is an addictive quality to screens, and it's just simply that fact of it's more stimulating. It's more stimulating to have something that's changing really quickly and that's visually sort of sucks you in. So there's that aspect just in terms of the eye and the brain. If you do a scan of someone's brain while they're scrolling media or while they're watching a fast-paced cartoon versus if you scan someone's brain when they're reading, it's two very different brains that you're looking at. Like what's happening internally is very different. And then how that manifests in your behavior becomes very different. And there's a whole nother concern and thing to talk about when it comes to digital media, which has to do with self-concept and how children are actually forming their conception of who they are based on their relationship to digital media, to the personalities and stereotypes and caricatures that they're seeing in digital media. And then as they get older through social media, the ways that their self is represented, the infatuation with representing oneself, the infatuation with being an image or having one's avatar being what's out in social media and manipulating how you look. We can see the obsession with things like selfies and the obsession with how you are presented online. And that's having a deep impact on young people's sense of who they are and what's important and what's valuable. And how are they valued and what's valuable about them? And it's a very distorted, I think, unfortunate environment for young people to be going through the process of sort of self knowledge while being mediated through social media is really unfortunate. We in general have a cell phone free campus during the school day. So we don't go to the extreme of saying that children can't have cell phones. And actually, they're allowed to have them on their person on campus, thinking of middle schoolers and high schoolers in general. But there's really no need to be using a cell phone on campus during the school day, even during breaks. There might be times during a class for a particular reason where if there's a pedagogical reason to use a cell phone, maybe instead of a laptop, that might be fine. But in general, we don't allow the use of cell phones for social media for recreational purposes during the school day. And we personally, I'm always happy to share information, particularly with middle school families, because my recommendation to any family would be to wait until 8th grade or high school to allow your child to get a cell phone. If it's helpful, I can personally share that my daughter as a 7th grader, I just got her first cell phone, but it's not a smartphone. It's actually a phone that has very limited capacity. So it actually does have access to the internet, but only very selected sites, and it can text and phone call, but there's no social media. There's very limited numbers of apps that it has possible. And there's tons of research about the negative effects of, in particular, social media apps like TikTok and Instagram. And I don't think they're healthy. I was having a talk with my daughter the other day because we also do not allow cell phone uses on buses for sporting games. They actually had a long bus drive to a sporting game. And, there was, of course, some frustration from the children because of the question, well, what are we supposed to do? And, the answer that I gave her was pretty obvious and straightforward. And it's also the reason of why we don't allow cell phone use on the buses or vans, because when we do, and I think there was a time when we did, it became very obvious that you had a lot of individual children all interacting with their phones and not interacting with each other. And once you take the phones away, they're talking to each other, laughing. They're doing whatever kids do on a bus together. They're looking out the window maybe and daydreaming, which is actually an okay thing to do. And it's what humans have always done. And I think we should still do in the future. So I'd say a lot more social interaction. I mean, for my daughter personally, it's a lot more reading and doing art projects and drawing and all the things that human beings have done for hundreds, if not thousands of years. We're still able to do them now. Good to remember that. I always remind her, we have to remember how new this is. I mean, even for me, I didn't grow up with a cell phone, and like we're okay. And there's this sense that there's this need to do the thing that's available to do right now. But when we put it in the context of how novel it is, I think we're really wise to go much, much slower in our rate of adoption of new technology.
Battle. Greek letter wrestling. No, it's the Greek wrestling. Oh, absolutely. It's BCS. BCS.